sweating. Welcome to Shmirchik Veterans Corner. You experience all the unpleasantness that comes with me. Right? Do you hear me? Welcome. So, yesterday we spoke about the golem of Prague and how the golem came into being. In the Talmud, there were great sages that created golems, which is a human being, like a person made out of clay. They bring it to life, but the golem can't speak or talk. In this instance, the legend of the golem of Prague, about the Maral of Prague, it's mostly legend, how he created a golem in order to save the Jewish community from the Christian people at the time who would accuse Jews of killing Christian children for ritual slaughter to put it in the matzah, the Jewish matzah on Passover, which of course is a lie, and the Jews were killed for this for 2,000 years. But this book it's mostly fiction, I think, but there are some parts of it which are true in regard to the great rabbi of Prague. And so we left off yesterday where we spoke about the last story of how the evil priest named Tadas, how he went and he kidnapped a girl, a Jewish girl, and convinced her to convert to Christianity, and she met the Duke, and then she was saved, and then the Duke thought she was dead, and then he converted to Judaism, and then they met by chance through a matchmaker, and then they got married and lived happily ever after. And now we're up to the story of how we were up to the part where the priest, the evil priest Tadas, where he gets exiled, right, and kicked out of Prague, and how it happened, right? So, a very amazing tale about a blood libel by the priest Tadas, which caused his final downfall and his banishment from Prague, right? So, it continues on to the story continues. So, if you watch this video in sequence with the last video, part 1, then you'll understand where we left off, and you'll understand it's more in context of, you know, how we will talk about it. So you'll understand the story better. 1 second. This amazing incident took place in the year 5345. In 1585 in Prague, opposite the great synagogue, stood a very old and tall building that looked like a king's palace from bygone days. It was known as the five-sided palace because of its pentagon shape. Each of its 5 walls faced a different street, and each wall had 5 tall, thick pillars made of hewn stones. 5 large, wide windows were set between the pillars, and on the roof stood 5 tall towers which had carved images, indicating that this palace was built when people still worshipped the sun. And because everything on this building was connected to the number 5, it was called the Five-Sided Palace. This palace did not have one owner, rather it was considered part of the property and chattel of the government. And because the authorities did not want to spend any money for maintenance, the building continually fell into greater disrepair. For the most part, poor people and indigent working men lived there. Under this building ran long, spacious cave-like cellars, but the tenants feared entering the cellars, for word had it that satyrs danced there and demons had taken possession of the palace. What are satyrs? Satyrs? What's satyrs' definition? It's lustful, drunken, woodland gods. So the woodland gods and the demons danced under by the cellars, right? The demons had taken possession of the palace. By hurling stones and creating a storm wind, they cast a pall of fear and dread upon anyone who wanted to enter. People said that more than one person was hurt when he sought to enter the cellars. Therefore, few tenants lived in the building. In any case, as time passed, the house became more and more dilapidated until it looked like an old ruin. Once, before Passover, after the search for leaven had been completed at the Maral's house, an incident occurred. The old Shamish, Rabbi Avraham Chaim, was standing next to the Maharal, the great rabbi, holding a lit candle. Just as the Maharal was about to recite all the leaven, as the prayer to go search for the leaven for Passover, right? The candle was suddenly extinguished. The Maharal, the great rabbi, the Maharal of Prague, had a custom of never saying anything by heart, but always using his siddur, his prayer book. He once told us that his customs was not out of strictness, but only because, based on the color of the letters in the siddur, heaven revealed future events to him. For there are colors that signify loving kindness, while some signify judgment and others compassion. So when he would look into the prayer book, he would see the letters and he would see the colors of the letters that would have different significance to him. And sometimes he would see aggression, right? And the letters in the siddur changed to the color of the overriding attribute. One time, while reciting the avoda portion of the Yom Kippur service, the Maharal burst into bitter tears. At the end of the holiday, we asked him why he had wept, and he explained to us that the same sign of the crimson thread used in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem that turned white was also in the avoda section of his siddur. But this Yom Kippur, the crimson letters, the red letters, did not turn white, for heaven had leveled great accusations against the Jews. This caused the Maharal great grief, but his weeping mitigated somewhat the severity of the judgment. So we all know, like, if you're Jewish, you know that the gates of heaven can be only opened, most of the time can be opened with tears, right? So that is why the Maharal gestured to the Shamish to kindle the light, for he thought it happenstance. The Shamish tried to light the candle a few times, but still the wick, it's very spiritual, all this stuff, right? It's Kabbalistic. So his helper, the Shamish, tried to light the candle a few times, but still the wick sputtered and refused to light. The Maharal's face became white with fear, for he understood at once that the matter was not simple. It's like a sign. He was receiving a sign from heaven that we're in trouble, right? All the people who stood there were also terrified. The Maharal was obliged to stop. "Take the siddur and come with me to the candle burning in the wall lamp," he told the Shamish, Rabbi Avraham Chaim. "Recite from the siddur the paragraph, all the leaven, word for word in a loud voice, and I'll respond by repeating the passage word for word by heart." This the Shamish did, confused and frightened by this incident. He approached the wall lamp and began to recite all the leaven is the prayer. But when it came to saying the words, "in my possession," it seemed to him that the words in the 5 were written in the siddur. So in the prayer book, instead of "my possession," the words in the 5 in Hebrew were written in the prayer book. So he said out loud for the Maharal to hear, "in the 5. The Maharal did not repeat this, but shouted, "Nu," a hint that the Shamish had made a mistake. But the Shamish grew even more confused and began to say a second time, "all the leaven that's in the 5. The Maharal then snapped his fingers, as was his wont when something astounding had occurred. "That's it!" he cried out in a loud voice. "Now I understand that this is a time of trouble for Jacob," for the Jews, right? "And they seek once more to extinguish the light of Israel. Now I also understand the interpretation of the dream I dreamed on the Friday night of the great Sabbath." The Maharal then rushed in a fright to the candle burning in the wall lamp. Because the lamp was set high, the Maharal himself stood on a bench holding the siddur up to the candlelight and recited the words, "to all my leaven," from the siddur properly, from the prayer book. When he finished, he ordered all the people who were in his house who lived in town to return home at once. Now no one was left in the Maharal's house except his son-in-law, the Gaon, our saintly master, Rabbi Yitzchak Katz, of blessed memory, the old Shamish, the helper, right, Rabbi Avraham Chaim, and the other Shamish, Yesla, the golem. Then the Maharal related a terrifying dream he had had on the Friday night of the great Sabbath. Flames and fire were coming out of the 5-sided palace because of a great conflagration there. And he saw in his dream a huge tongue of fire leaping out of the 5-sided palace and breaking into a window of the great synagogue when it was full of Jews praying. So he saw a huge fire leap out of the 5-sided palace and break into a window of the great synagogue, which was full of Jews praying. He was very frightened in his sleep and began shouting at the top of his voice until he woke, afraid and terror-stricken. A nightmare, a really bad dream. "Now I understand the meaning of the dream," said the Maharal. "In this 5-sided palace, an accusation and great misfortune has been planned for the citizens citizens of Prague, and we must quickly rid ourselves of it, just as we rid ourselves of the leaven. The leaven is when on Passover we're not allowed to have anything that rises. You have to get rid of it. Such a scary story. Okay. A scary story. A scary story.
It's just, I love this the baby. I love. Will you help us kill the demons? Will you help us get rid of the demons? Yes, I love. Yeah. Let's go hear the story about the terrible demons. This is the baby. Yes. Oh.
I love the baby. Okay. Now I understand the meaning of the dream, said the Maral. In this five-sided palace, an accusation and great misfortune has been planned for the citizens of Prague, and we must quickly rid ourselves of it, just as we rid ourselves of the leaven. And that is why heaven ordained that the Shamish of Avram Chaim should say the words, all the leaven in the five, to remind us that we must get rid of the leaven in the five-sided palace. So they have to go and find the non-kosher, the leaven, which is like something that rises. So he said, there's a sign, we have to go and get rid of it. And what's going to happen next will be astounding, right? Five-side palace. So we must get rid of the leaven in the five-sided palace where a trap and snare have been set for the citizens of Prague. For fire has come out of the five-sided palace and burnt the windows of the great synagogue. When all the Jews were in it, and the fact that the candle was extinguished hinted that they want to extinguish the light of Israel, that the misfortune was planned also against me, who is called the light of Israel because I contain the spark of King David, peace be upon him, who is also called the light of Israel. So it looks like the Maral was from the line of King David. The Maral began to probe and inquire how evil against the people of Israel could be found in the five-sided palace. He himself asked all the tenants who lived there who they were and what they did. However, the old Shamish remembered each one perfectly and knew each one of the tenants well. He recalled each one's name, and not one of them could be suspected of evil intent, for only poor Jews and simple artisans lived there. But one matter extremely agitated and frightened the Maral. When I was a boy, the old Shamish told him, the first graders would tell each other old legends about the five-sided palace, and everyone related what he had heard from his forefathers. One of these legends was that in the ancient times, a king lived in this palace, who never showed his face to the people of the city. When he had to attend prayer service in the cloister, in the church, he went from his residence to the green cloister through a subterranean passage that was built from the cellar of the palace to the cellar of the green cloister. And that green cloister is the very one where the priest Tadas, the bitter enemy of the Jews, now resides. When the Maral heard this legend, he said, if that is so, then this priest Tadas, who is my opponent and foe, has surely prepared some evil design in the cellar of his five-sided palace, for he no doubt knows about the subterranean passage, and it is easy for him to implement his plot without any interference. The Maral knew that this priest always lay in wait to crush him and have his vengeance upon him. The priest created wily stratagems to make him fall into the pit he had dug regarding the blood libel, because the Maral attempted always with all his might to guard the city from the false accusation of ritual murder. The rabbi also knew that the priest Tadas still burnt with rage over the matter of Rabbi Mikhail's burger's daughter, because she was saved, right? Because his scheme for converting her was thwarted. Moreover, this priest was a great sorcerer, and understood that this could have been accomplished by no one but the Maharal, that the girl was stolen from her cloister room, from the church room, and that the fire was purposefully set by the priest's servant in order to camouflage the event. And from the remarks made by the priest Tadas, who justified himself afterward in the court before the judges, he seemed to assume that while he was at the priest's conference in Krakow, his servant had taken a large sum of money in exchange for returning the girl to her parents. The priest also assumed that all this was done at the advice of the Maharal, which is why he decided to take vengeance against both his servant and the Maharal. Indeed, it was true that a terrible blood accusation had been planned against the notables of the city and also against the Maharal himself. Here is how it happened. The priest Tadius employed a servant who had a wife and children. The priest's house stood in the courtyard of the Green Cloister church. On one side of the house, the windows faced the cloister courtyard. On the other, the windows looked out at a large garden surrounded by a wall with an iron gate that opened onto a road outside the city. 2 weeks before Passover, at the onset of spring, when the trees were blooming, the priest's servant and his wife would go out in the afternoon to work several hours in the garden, hoeing the soil and trimming the trees. Their children would then begin to play in the garden and run around. While tending the garden, they opened the iron gate to throw away the refuse that had been collected in the garden throughout the winter. The servants' children would often run out of the gate and play there. In the evening, when the priest's servant and his wife returned home, they would call all the children who were scattered in the garden and outside of it. They would look for them and bring them home. The priest Tadas was aware of all this and thought this is a good opportunity to take revenge against his servant and create a blood libel against the Maharal. So this servant and his wife, this servant was the one that was responsible for making the fire and pretending that it was the girl, right? If you followed from the last story. So he wanted to revenge himself on the servant and against the Maharal, the great rabbi of Prague, right? He lay in wait for the servant's children towards evening. At the time when their parents were busy with their work, the children were scattered in the garden and outside of it. Seeing one of the boys separated from his brothers and playing by himself near the priest's house, by deceit the priest lured him into his house. He took him to the big cellar, slaughtered him, and drained his blood into a vessel. Then he poured the blood into many small flasks and pasted labels on them with the names of the notables in the city in Hebrew letters, including those of the Maharal, his sons and son-in-law, and the three communal leaders who were called primus. The priest brought all this from his cellar to the cellar of the 5-sided palace. He also carried the body of the slaughtered boy there. So he was a murderer as well, right? This is how vile the Jew haters are, you know? Vile. The priest prepared this great blood accusation. Okay, after passing through the subterranean passage that linked the 2 cellars, he brought everything into an old closet that stood in the cellar. The priest prepared this great blood accusation so that he and the municipal police would be able to attack the Jewish quarter on the eve of Passover and initiate there a wide-ranging search until the accusation would be realized, and he could arrest the Maharal himself along with the members of his household and the notables of the city. All this was done on Friday night of the great Sabbath, and that is why on that night the Maharal had this terrible dream that was described earlier. I'm frightened of my nightmares because usually they come true. You know, my nightmares, a lot of my dreams, I dream in high Khalid. In the evening, the priest's servant and his wife had finished their gardening work and were about to return home. As they began to gather their children to go back home with them, they noticed one boy missing. They looked for him till nearly midnight and could not find him. In the morning, the priest's servant and his wife came to the priest and told him what had happened to them. The priest replied, "I think the boy surely ran off to play on the road outside the gate, the iron gate, and got lost in the field." Then he added, "But there's something else you have to fear. Since this day is close to the Passover holiday of the Jews, and they lie in wait every year to slaughter a Christian and take his blood to mix it into their matzahs. So who knows if the boy hasn't fallen victim at the hands of the Jews? Now you have no choice but to report this matter to the chief of police and ask him to quickly search all the Jewish houses. The priest also advised his servant's wife, "Tell the police chief that on the day your son disappeared, you looked through the iron gate toward evening, and at a distance you saw a Jew in the field carrying a sack on his shoulder with something in it. Tell him the sack moved on his shoulder as though something living were inside of it. And no doubt this Jew kidnapped your son for slaughter." And the priest further ordered her, "Weep bitterly and fall at the police chief's feet and beg him to initiate the search as quickly as possible." He was such a vile, terrible person, this priest. Also ask him to have the priest Tadas accompany the police to help them during the search. So he wanted to be there to help during the search so he can find the dead body and accuse the Jews of the murder that he committed, right? Blood libel, to blame the Jews for ritual use of the child's blood, the Christian blood, but he's the one who actually, this priest, this Christian priest, is the one that actually slaughtered the boy, right? And tried to pin it on the Jews for revenge, and for revenge on the servant. Hearing the priest's words, the unfortunate mother burst into tears and ran at once to the chief of police. She fell weeping at his feet and told him everything the priest Tadas had instructed her to say. And then she added, "Start the search immediately with the help of the priest Tadas." "I'll do everything you've asked me," the chief replied, "but it won't be possible to do this today because I must first obtain the consent of the mayor. I'll make the request today, and tomorrow morning I'll start the search with the help of many men and accompanied by the priest Tadas." Then he warned the woman, "But do not reveal anything about this matter to anyone. It is written, however, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps." When heaven revealed to the Maharal that misfortune was approaching, which he had to eliminate like leaven, and that this trouble was located in the five-sided palace, he neither rested nor was he still. The Maharal girded his strength at once for a vigorous battle to eliminate this leaven. "It is true," said the Maharal, that it's dangerous to enter the cellar of that ruin, but I will rely." Okay, so now it's back to the Maharal and his dream and how he's being warned that there is a dead body that the priest killed, and it's planted in the castle of 5, the Tower of 5, whatever, and he has to go and find the body so that the Jews don't get blamed for something, for a blood libel which they didn't commit, because they're being framed. The priest was trying to frame the Jews for this, right? "It is true," said the Maharal, "that it's dangerous to enter the cellar of that ruin, but I will rely on the Talmudic adage, 'No harm befalls those who were sent on a pious mission.' But even though people say it is a place where danger is to be expected, the merit of the Jewish multitude will protect me from all harm," because there's demons there, you know, so they're really scary, these demons. They jump and dance and they shriek and they laugh and they're really scary. After midnight, the Maharal took 3 thick Havdalah tapers and a tinderbox. He gave one to each of his 2 shamashim, Reb Avram Chaim and Yoslo the Golem, while he held the third. He also took his staff with him, and all 3 walked silently into the five-sided palace, so that no one would be aware of them. Arriving at the steps that led into the cellar, they lit the 3 tapers, light candles, and continued walking. But when they opened the door, a blast of wind came, and the cellar was filled with dust from the strong draught that extinguished all 3 tapers. They also heard many dogs barking, and a great fright came over them. "Don't be afraid," the Maharal told them, "but gird your strength and don't move." After the Maharal and Reb Avraham Chaim repeated 3 times, "O you who dwell in the shelter of the Most High," the wind and dust ceased, and the dogs' barking subsided too. But as they walked further, stones from the abandoned cellar fell on them. They feared that the vault of the cellar would collapse on them. "Go you alone," said the Maharal. The Maharal told Yoslo the Golem, "for even the demons won't harm you," right? So the Golem, which he created, right, can't be harmed by anybody. "Even the demons won't harm you. Look carefully in all the rooms, and if you find anything suspicious in connection with the blood libel, bring it to me." The Maharal and Reb Avram Chaim moved back to the door. Only Yoslo the Golem proceeded forward by himself, holding the lit Havdalah taper. After looking, he found a little basket with a slaughtered boy in it, wrapped in a fringed prayer shawl, and another basket containing about 30 small blood-filled flasks. Glued onto the flasks were little notes with the names of the Maharal, his son and son-in-law, and other community notables. When Yashala the golem brought all these to the Maral, the rabbi commanded, "Take the slaughtered boy as is and carry him through the subterranean passage to the cellars of the priest Thaddeus's cloister, to his church. Look for the priest's wine cellar and hide the boy there among the barrels, well out of sight. Then come back to me using the same passageway." The golem fulfilled all the Maral's orders flawlessly and returned half an hour later from the passage. The Maral then told his 2 assistants to dig a hole in the cellar floor, where they smashed all the blood-filled flasks with stones. They threw everything into the hole and covered it with earth so that no trace was discernible. After this was done, all 3 men returned home happily. The Maral commanded them not to tell a soul about what they had seen. Which cellar floor? Right, it was in the Tower of 5, right? The Palace of 5. On the eve of Passover, at 10 in the morning, the police chief suddenly appeared in the Jewish quarter, accompanied by many policemen and soldiers. The priest Thaddeus had come along with them, too. The soldiers and the police quickly barged into the homes of the Jews in groups of 2 and conducted a thorough search. The police chief and the priest Thaddeus first searched the great synagogue and then the Maral's house and the houses of the community notables. When they passed the 5-sided palace, the priest told the police chief, "This place should also be searched, for most of the time the Jews commit their ritual murders in ruins like this." And so they all searched all the rooms of the cellar, but they came back as empty-handed as they had come. In the afternoon they returned to their homes, having accomplished nothing. During the search, a pall of deathly dread fell upon the Jews of Prague. But the Maral immediately declared, "Tell the people in my name to pass the word not to have the slightest fear, for the trap has been broken, and we have fled to safety. Now prepare for Passover with great joy, for the Rock of Israel and its Redeemer has performed hidden miracles for us to save us from this false accusation." That, like, people like Adam, right? Hi, the official ambassador of the mulatto race. Hey, like the people like Adam, right, and Randy that accuse us of this type of murder, right? Ritual murder. Accuse us of doing the worst crimes. You know, this is the evilness of them. This is who these Jew haters are, right? Hi, Sargon of Akkad. Yeah, I went to the store and I came back because I have to talk about the Golem of Prague, right? For several days, the body of the slaughtered boy lay well hidden in the priest Thaddeus' cellar until it began to smell. Since the Christian Easter was approaching, about a week before the holiday, the priest told his servant, "Go down to the cellar, clean it, and make order, and take inventory of all the wine so I can know how much wine to order for Easter." So the same servant that he killed his son, he killed this servant's son. So he's telling him to go clean. The servant went down to the cellar, followed by the dog that always ran after him. As the servant began his work, the dog scampered to and fro in the cellar, sniffing in every corner, as dogs are wont to do when they look for something. Finally, the dog sniffed out the place where the dead boy was hidden. The dog began to bark lustily and to dart back and forth on that spot. The servant, realizing that this was not a trifling matter, began to search in that area until he discovered the boy's corpse. At once he saw it was his missing son. Terror-stricken, he ran to the police chief and told him what he had seen. The police chief, accompanied by soldiers, came quickly and went down into the cellar and saw that the servant had spoken the truth. "This has to be the work of the priest Thaddeus himself," the servant shouted. "He always aspires to attack the Jews and provoke them with accusation of ritual murder." Everyone knew that the servant was absolutely right. At first, the priest tried to deny everything, saying, "I know nothing at all about this matter." However, through several signs and wonders, his crime became evident, and the priest had to confess that his hands had spilled this blood. But he justified himself, saying, "I committed this murder out of zealousness for the Christian faith, and because my servant robbed Christianity of a precious soul who had lived with me for several weeks." So he's a murderer, you know. But then in exchange for a bribe my servant took from them while I was away at priest conferences in Krakow, he brought her back to her parents. Then the priest added, "I also did it to take revenge against the rabbi of the Jews, whose idea it surely was to bribe my servant, and that's why I killed his child, to incite a blood libel against the rabbi, in order to have my revenge against both of them." Both the servant threw the priest's denial back in his face. Not so, you sneakily lured the daughter of Rev Mikhaili Berger to you. You forced her to convert, and you imprisoned her. And because of the depths of her suffering, she grew sick of living and set her room on fire. The matter ended with the priest Tadas' arrest and trial. His punishment was exile to an uninhabited land for the rest of his life. So may all the wicked enemies of Israel perish. Regarding this incident, the Maharal created a humorous play on words. When the Saturday night table hymn mentions protecting the esteemed woman, this refers to the holy Shekhinah, the holy God's presence, as well as the children. That means the children of Israel. 5, said the woman to him, which means that by making the Shamish say 5, the Shekhinah was sending me a message to carefully search the 5-sided palace and eliminate the leaven, that is, the impurity from that house. So that's the end of that story. Yeah, so that's the end of that story, and then the book continues on. We have a lot of there's number 16. It's the marvelous story of the wonder of wonders that the Maharal revealed to the 2 girls, whose 2 children were switched by midway. Right, it's another huge story. Right, and it all involves the golem of Prague that he created. Right, so this is legend. Parts of this stuff is true and parts is not true, right? So, but it's a nice folk tale for the Jewish people because of the accusations that were leveled at us throughout 2,000 years about us killing Christian children to mix their blood into our matzah, which is it got Jews killed for this lie. It got entire Jewish communities were killed, murdered, slaughtered, for this lie. And so a lot of this stuff was made into for comfort for the Jewish people. It was made into legend, folklore, and when we read it, it makes us feel good because the villains get a good beating and the innocent people are innocent and they live happily ever after. It's so nice. Right? But this is a little bit of insight into like people like like the Randys and the Adams that come on my channel that literally accuse me of ritual murder. They say, oh, they send me videos on Gmail. Go look what the Jews do. Okay, not all Jews do this, but some Jews do this. Like literally, like this is what they push. This is the lie, the age-old lie of Christians slandering us and telling everybody and accusing us of killing their kids for their blood. Like this is how perverted they are, and it's a projection of their own it's their criminal actions of themselves. They project it onto us, right? Because Christianity, they believe in the host, right? The body of Jesus in bread. They drink the blood of Jesus, right, in communion. So it's no surprise there that they would stoop so low to accuse Jews of something that they would maybe do, like drinking Jesus' blood. Like blood is strictly forbidden in Judaism. Like not even 1 ounce of blood, not even 1 drop of blood can be eaten by a Jew because it's forbidden strictly. And that's the perversion, right? That's the perversion of the Jew haters, to take something that is so strictly forbidden by the Jews and to accuse us of doing something which is completely against our faith. It's an inversion, it's a perversion, it's sick, and they do it on purpose because they know it's going to hurt us. They know it's going to hurt us deeply. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they do it, That's why they do it. And the same with today, like they know that the Nazis killed 6 million Jews. They know. These Jew haters, they know that the Nazis killed 6 million Jews in the most atrocious ways. And they take the accusation of Nazism and put it on us when they know we're the victims of Nazism. And they know what's happening in Gaza is not a genocide. And they know that we are the victim of genocide. But they do it to invert and pervert the truth in order to hurt us in a very deep way. And this is the wickedness and the evilness of the Jew hater. Down with them. 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 Right? I'm not going to read any more of this for now because it's a little bit much for me. You know, it's a little bit much for me because it's intense. It's bothersome. It's intense, even though it's a nice story. You know, like, it goes on to talk about more blood libels that were foiled by the great rabbi, right, and his golem. But yeah, I have 2 other channels, right? So I might go on there. I'm not sure if I have the energy to actually do that, like, because I started to talk about on my other channel. I started to talk about Moshe Dayan's book, but the problem is that I get very worked up because it uncovers the truth of who did what. You know, this is like his biography and from his letters and everything. So then, like, my book channel is not supposed to be political. It's not supposed to be political, but then I get so riled up, you know, and I start saying things like, I hate that when people accuse you of doing things you never ever do. Exactly. But in the most vile way, you know? Like, yes, there are people being killed in Gaza, but it's mostly terrorists, and the terrorists, they love to blow their own kids up, like I showed you in my other video. So they don't love their kids. They don't love their kids. So then, like, I started talking about this book on my other channel, and then, you know, it talks about the Ottomans, for example, trying to deport Jews out of Israel. Like, the Ottomans, who were the Turkey's people from Turkey, they were in charge of Israel before, like, from 1900, like, from before 1900s to, like, 1910 or something. And, like, Moshe Dayan's parents, you know, they made it really difficult for the Jews to live there, and they wanted to get rid of the Jews and, like, get them out of, like, Palestine, right? And they are, like, guilty of what they accuse us of. They're guilty. The Muslims, what they accuse the Jews of, they are guilty of doing that. Because they claim Nakba, you know, but for like 100 years, they've been doing Nakba from all Jews in their countries, and they've been doing Nakba from Jews within Palestine. And it made me angry, and then I started going crazy, like, screaming and shouting on my other channel, and then I realized, like, oh my god, a few people unsubscribe because it's not just, because they hate Jews, you know. It's just fine. I don't want Jew haters subscribing to my channel anyway. They can go fuck themselves. You should really read Perfume, but I don't know if it's good in English. I think English is not a good language for a good book. Really? I love literature. I don't know, I don't really know much about other languages, so I can't really comment on, because I'm not brought up with, like, other languages besides for Hebrew, English, and I know a few words in Russian. That's it. So, but from what I like is I like English. From when I was little, I loved the language of English, the literature, the way things are written, the way Old English, not very Old English, but old English literature, and I like the classical books. I haven't read much in my life, but I'm trying to read. But the problem is, like, it takes a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of time, and, you know, I'm trying to so yeah, I'm trying to, like, this book that I'm reading about the golem is, hi Duncan, this book about the golem, I read it like 100 times when I was a kid. You know, that's why I've been telling you about it for a long time, and I've been wanting you to see. I wanted to share this book with you guys because it's just so fascinating, you know, for me at least. In Germany, there are so many different meanings for words like issue, charge, claim. That would be very confusing for me. I think English is poor and simple music. Right. And also China, but the thing is, in Chinese, right? My bae. You can express way more in German, yeah. But in Chinese, there's also, one word can have lots of meanings, you know, like, just depending how you say it in Chinese language, right? But I actually think that if you know English very well, there's all different kinds of words for one word. If you know the English language really well, for a word like you said, like claim, right, and charge, there are many more words which we don't use. It's just ancient English. And so So I think I have to disagree with you, even though I don't know what the language is. Do you know what I'm saying? But, like, for instance, let's see, words for dream, right? Words for dream. Dream. Right? Dream, definition. Definition. Dream definition. Dream. A series of thoughts, images, and sensations occurring in a person's mind during sleep. I had a recurrent dream and falling from great heights, right? So, similar to these words, right, is fantasy, nightmare, vision, hallucination. You can say dreams as in a cherished aspiration, ambition, or ideal, or fulfilled a childhood dream when I became champion. Ambition, aspiration. Yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad word to... Maybe that's a bad word to use for as an example of how there are many words for one word, right, that we don't even know, right? So, for instance, claims, definition, other words for claims, other words for claim, assert, declare, profess, maintain, state, hold, affirm, avow, aver, protest, insist, swear, attest, argue, contend, submit, move, allege, lay claim, say that one owns, assert ownership of, formally request, pretend to, noun, assertion, declaration, profession, affirmation, avowal, averment, protestation, representation, contention, submission, case, allegation, request, application, demand, petition, call. So there's lots of words, actually. Does this mean that I'm not understanding what you're saying? Yeah? Or is this what you mean, or am I not understanding, right? You understand what I'm saying? You're stoned? Why are you stoned? I'm so stoned again, I can't write anymore properly. Nightmare is like synonymous for dream. It's a special kind of dream. Yeah, so how come you're so stoned? Why are you stoned? Anyway. Yeah, so I have lots of ambitions, you know, like I need to go on my other channel and do more tarot readings. You know, I need to go, right, there are many synonymous for these words, but many people, especially U.S. American, mostly use the confusing simple word, yeah. But I think we have to still give credit to the English language, you know what I mean? Just because Americans are simple-minded, like, in my arguments, is it fun? Is it fun to be, are you happy when you get stoned? Yeah? Are you happy when you get stoned? Do you like, is it expensive? And then are you happy when you get high? Like, does it make you, well, I used to sort of, used to smoke before, it's very nice. Yeah, I'm sweating. I'm sweating because it's hot here, right? So, anyway. Yeah, it's been real. You know? You asked before if Redbeard comes on here anymore. No, he doesn't. And he's not welcome. If he wants, you can watch. I don't care. But, like, he said things lots of times which were questionable, and then he went back on his word. But, you know, I think he doesn't like the Jews. Yeah, I wouldn't get stoned. I would have to think about Islamic world. If I wouldn't get stoned, I would have to think about Islamic world domination all day. Right, that's true. That's true. Islam is poison. At least the Christians, you know, however bad they are. Like today, they've taken a turn. They're not as hateful. The European Christians, I think they're probably very hateful, but the American Christians, they're not. But at least for the Christians, a lot of them believe that the Old Testament is true, you know? He added, oh, all religions. He said your religion is the, he said, your religion is the cause of all wars. And then he added all religions. And then he said things like, oh, you're not individual, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, that accusation that my religion is the cause for all wars, it's classic anti-Semitism. That's why, like, I did a whole videos. I did, because of that, I did videos on, like, conspiracy theorists, how they blame all the wars of the world on the Jews. Like, your religion is the... And he said things like that before. It's not the first time. Do you know what I'm saying? So, like... You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. There are people who... In every religion, there is always going to be bad people, you know? But, you know, for the most part, like... Oh, your religion is what causes all religion. Oh, all war, right? Like, okay. So the Jewish communities everywhere are causing war for just existing. You know what I'm saying? Like... Okay, my existence is causing wars. Like, how does that work? You know, it's age-old accusations, and yeah, he tried to save his face by saying all religions, but I don't even think it's religions that cause war. I think it's just people who use religion for power. They use religions to be dominant, right? But we never started any wars in Israel, like, for example. Like, the Jews here, we never start wars. It's the Muslims, they start with us. You know? If you look at the history, every war they started. Or if we went on an offensive war, right? One time we striked first because we saw that they were trying to attack us. They were getting ready to attack us. So we went and did a counter-strike. Like, to prevent a preventative strike, and then we get blamed because, oh, you started the war. No, they were gonna murder us. Like, if they attacked first, there would be casualties here, and they want to kill us, you know. So the NWO wants to ban all religions, I think, but I don't know why they let Muslims multiply before. What's the NWO? I don't know. Let's go look up. What's NWO? You know, like... Listen, there are criminals in the Israeli government, but it's not for the reasons that Redbeard thinks. Oh, it's the New World Order? Oh, it's not this, it's not Hulk Hogan. You're talking about the New World Order people. They want to stamp out religion. The reason why they want Islam to flourish is only because... I'll tell you why. Because... I hope there's no New World Order, otherwise if they don't have a plan... If they don't have a plan, Islam could win. No, the thing is, it's intentional. The reason why they bring in the Muslims, it's intentional. It's intentional because Muslims, right, they think that, you know, like, for example, the CIA, right? The CIA, before the Holocaust, right, before World War II, the CIA, they were just like, they shared in the same views as Hitler. And Hitler's views was eugenics, right, which is like weeding out, like getting the perfect genes, weeding out, making the humanity, slim down humanity, you know, like, because the world is overpopulated, right? So then the CIA were eugenics, right? The people in the deep state in America, the elites, the cabals, the oligarchs, right? They were all, you know, so the people who were behind all the powers in America, not the regular people, the people in the government, they were colluding with Hitler, right? They liked his ideas. The problem was that, and their idea is also to take over the world, right? So the problem was that once Hitler got into power, like the CIA helped, apparently, I don't know how they did it, but they helped Hitler get to power, and they thought that, you know, Hitler would be a tool to help the deep state, the elites, to take control of everybody. They want to control Americans. They want to control the world, the deep state, the elites. And so they thought that, you know, Hitler would just be a good asset. The problem was that Hitler went rogue. He went crazy. So that's when World War II started. So now they're doing the same mistake, right? There's a deep state, and the deep states work together, and all the NGOs, you can see that how they act all the same during Corona. Exactly. Yeah. Also, there's a deep state in Israel, right? But it's a little bit different here because here it's like the people, the actual Israelis, they have more power than the Israeli government. It's not like the Israeli government, they don't have as much power over the people as they'd like to think, right? So even the deep state in Israel, right? So the problem with the deep state, right? Like, it's so hard for me as a German man to think about it and listen to you at the same time. Wow, you're multitasking, right? I understand. So, sorry about that. So basically, the deep state, right? They're making the same mistake. All these cabals, all these oligarchs, these rich people who have lots of power and influence. And let's not mistake them with Jews, because there are some Jews in powerful positions, but most of them are not Jewish, right? So they want to control the world, and they think that by bringing in like immigrants into America, for example, opening the borders, bringing in all these third world freaks to terrorize the regular population, they think that they will be able to be like, oh my God, look, these people, they're trying to kill you. Now let us take control to keep you safe. They think that they'll be able to control everybody that way. The problem is, once they underestimate the Muslims, you know, because the Muslims, they're making the same mistake that they did with Hitler, you know, like, you think you'll be able to control the masses once terrorism takes over. The problem is, the Muslims will get much more powerful, and then it will either lead to huge wars, or the Muslims will actually kill the oligarchs and kill the deep state and take over completely and be the New World Order for the entire humanity, which is, it's like really stupid, right? Is there LGBTQ propaganda in Israel with gay rainbow flags everywhere? Yes, but it's not the same as in America. You know, here you don't have, people here are not, they don't have the leisure time to, they are underestimating the Muslims. They don't understand. They don't get, they think that with their nukes and the deep state and the oligarchs, they think that they can control the Muslims, but they're underestimating. They're doing the same mistake they did with Hitler. They're doing with the Muslims, right? So, from what I hear and understand, right? So then, in Israel, right, people here are more grounded because of the lifestyle, because of the stresses of the Israelis don't have time to indulge in fantasy and in mental illness. They don't have time to indulge in perversion, mental illness, and fantasy. They don't have the leisure, they don't have the freedom to do that because of the constant wars going on here, and because of the terrorism every day, and because of the small country. Everybody's condensed together, so everyone's in everyone's business, you know, like, I can't walk down the street here in Israel without people telling me what to do or bothering me, you know, like, like, I go and I'm like, giving my dog a drink from the water fountain, and one guy, he's just like, it's like every single time I go out, they're always, like, telling me off. All Israelis, they tell each other off all the time, you know, they have big mouths, and it's not like in America, like, here's just normal, everyday life for them, everybody to tell each other off, you know, so even the deep state within Israel, right, they're being exposed now because a lot of them are responsible for allowing October 7th to happen, right? So those, like, rich people, the elites in Israeli, in the IDF, there's the elites, the deep state, and in the government there's the deep state, right? But they're not able to have as much power as any other governments anywhere else in the world because the people here are big mouths. They're out of control. Do you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, like, it's a very interesting life, right? So, like, everybody in the other countries, they have the leisure to indulge in their delusions. Here, there's no room for that. You know what I'm saying? Imagine 60% in a country, 60% of politicians, policemen, and soldiers are Muslims. Yeah, that's what's going on in your country. What would happen then? You know it, and I know it, but people are dumb. Does this make us prophets when we see others, what others can't see? No, it's just common sense. It's just common sense. Most people are deluded. You know? Most people are delusional, you know? Or they're very naive and they don't understand. They don't understand evil. They've never seen it. They don't believe evil has happened and can happen. They, you know, like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I guess Jews can see the danger. Not all Jews. There are some Jews, I know personally, there are many Jews who are self-effacing and they are traitorous and they are, stand with Arabs against us. Like Norman Finkelstein. Like, I have a friend also I used to work with. She's like, the Israeli government is doing really bad things to the Muslims in the West Bank. Oh, the Jews in the West Bank are being violent and attacking the Muslims. And she doesn't understand how, like, she stands with Muslims who would rip her head off if they had a chance, you know, like, that's the type of people there are, like, American Jews that think that way, you know, like at a Shabbat dinner, like, some people would stand up and be like, I remember at my brother's house, a girl stands up and she's like, the IDF needs to do this and that. She starts, like, preaching at everybody at how we have to be humane to the Arabs. And it's just like, we're all, like, just sitting there. We're all, like, the rest of us are like, okay, we're aware of who these Muslims are. And she's busy defending the Muslims and saying how the Jews in the settlements are bad people and stuff. You know? And I'm just like, this girl doesn't understand. Like, how do you explain to these people that you don't live in Israel, you don't understand that if you're not going to show aggression to these Muslims, they will rip your head off, they will kill you, they will slaughter you. Like, this is their culture, you know? You know, like, how do you explain to these lunatics, you know? Like, and you don't want to, like, you don't want to offend them, right? You don't want to offend these people because they're your friends, you know, and you're supposed to be nice to them, and you're supposed to, like, be a good host. But this is the type of people, you know, there's a lot of Jews like that really, they love Arabs, and they think you can have peace with Arabs, when the Arabs just want to hack us to pieces. They don't get the threat, they don't understand it, and you try to tell them, and they still don't listen, and they don't want to hear, and they don't care. They think they're right, and you're wrong, you know? So, oh yeah, and they drink the media Kool-Aid, you know, the media likes to lie about everything, and they think it's true, you know? It's like they believe the lies about themselves that are being told in the media. Like, it's like Jews in Germany at the time of, in 1939, when Hitler was doing propaganda, it's like the propaganda is so powerful that Jews in Germany, I'm not saying they believed in the propaganda, but, like, it's the same type of thing that's happening in America. Like, the Jews are believing the propaganda about themselves, like, that are being told about themselves. Like, it's like Jews in Germany believing the propaganda about themselves, how bad they are, because the Germans are telling them, and they're even convincing them about how bad they are. Like, it's warped, it's perverted, it's sick, it's upside down, it's the media makes me think they ignore every bad thing they do, yeah. It is what it is, you know, this is the world we live in. You know, and then they all stand on, like, a high horse, and they act all morally superior, you know, like, and they say things like, you don't care for humanity, we're supposed to do tikkun. They say things like this, the Jews, they say, that care for the Palestinians, they say, we're supposed to do tikkun olam. We're not supposed to go down to their level. We're supposed to be good to them. We're supposed to teach them and show through kindness, you know, teach them how to behave, and we're supposed to give them jobs, and we're supposed to accept them and love them, and, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, let them into your house. It's like letting in a poisonous snake. They'll kill you. They'll bite you, and you'll die from their venom. You know? That's that, you know? And then and then if you say, like, hey, the settlers in the West Bank, they barely, in Judea and Samaria, they barely ever attack any Muslim villages. But when they do it, they usually do it because someone from their town was killed by a Muslim. So they try to show strength through burning down, rioting in the Muslim villages. They try to show them, hey, don't fuck with us. And tried explaining this to these like warped Jews who don't understand the threat here, you know? And they act all like, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. There are peaceful Muslims. Not everybody's like that. Stop generalizing. And it's just like, okay, so why don't you go live with them? You know, you really believe that? Go live with them. Go live with them. And tell us how it went, you know? They just don't get it. They don't understand it. And then they tell you you're a bad person. I can't help if they're in delusion. They're sick. These people are sick. They're sick. You know what I'm saying? The politicians and journalists are surrounded by the few Muslims who can actually write and read. But most of them is totally uneducated, aggressive scum. Who's uneducated? Like, the politicians? You know, it's just like, it's a very strange world we live in. Everybody got pissed because the Muslims are destroying his country right now. The Muslims are destroying his country. Yeah, so let him go out and let him go and riot. Let him go. Go riot. You know, like, oh, your people are cause of all wars. Really? Really? My people, the Jews, are the cause of all wars? Like, what, the Muslims are not the one causing war? Like, the Muslims are the ones killing your kids. Are the Jewish people in the Jewish communities killing white children, babies, kids? Like, do you see Jewish people doing that? Do you see rabbis going and killing children? No, you'll never see it. But we cause the war? We cause all the wars. He's a Jew hater. And he said things like that before. He said things like borderline, you know, like, oh, we, like, stuff like that. And then he went back on his words. And I was like, okay, every time I was like, okay, I'm going to forgive. I'm going to forget. I'm going to be like, give him the benefit of the doubt because he seems like a nice guy. But he's just another Randy, you know? He's just another Randy. You know, if you care that your house and your people shouldn't be killed by Muslim terrorists, you need to stand with Israel and be like, yeah, go take out those motherfuckers. You know, stand with us against these monsters so that they don't come to you. You know? Like they do gang rape. It's rape culture. You know, Islam is rape culture. You know what I'm saying? The politicians are also dumb. Our foreign minister said so many stupid things. It's unbelievable. What needs to happen is that the people need to rise up and get rid of the government. The problem is in the countries like the UK, right? The people don't have weapons. The people can't even do civil war if they want. They can't even overthrow the government if they want because they don't have weapons. Because the government now is the enemy of the people. And the people, the British people, because they don't have a Second Amendment like in America, they are being oppressed by their government and they can't fight back. So that's the whole purpose of weapons, right? Having weapons is that if there are bad people in office that are trying to do bad things to you and are destroying everything, you have to be able to overthrow them. Because that's what a democracy is. It's for the people, by the people. And if you're fucking with the people, then the people need to fuck with you. Right? But, like in America, all the government, they're trying their hardest to take away weapons. You know? They're trying their hardest to take away assault weapons and over the name of, oh yeah, people who come and do high school shootings and stuff. Like, oh, because of them, let's go take away all your weapons. And it's a huge fight because Americans understand, you know, like there's a reason for the Second Amendment. It's so that whatever weapons the government can have, the people should have the same exact weapons so that the government can never get big and control the people and enslave the people because people in power, that's what they want. A lot of them are bad people, you know, and they want to enslave the people. It's all about power. They're power hungry. They're freaks. You know, like in every single country where tyrants take over, what's the first thing that the tyrants do? Is ban weapons. They confiscate the civilians' weapons, right? So, for instance, is North Koreans Koreans allowed civilians allowed to have weapons. Are North Koreans allowed to have weapons? Do North Korea have weapons? They have nuclear weapons, the government, but are weapons legal, right? No one shall possess guns, swords, explosive, gas sprays, electroshock weapons, or crossbows without permission. So, in North Korea, nobody can have... No, not in Korea. In North Korea. I'm asking about their gun laws, right? According to 2009 law, civilian possession of firearms is prohibited in North Korea. No, they're not. That's why the people are slaves, so they can never even fight back against the government. The government is controlling them. You know, you remember that kid that got killed by the North Koreans, right? And they accused him of a crime, and they made a show of him, and they didn't let him out, and they forced him to confess to something so stupid, right? Gun control in North Korea, right? What did Hitler do? Did Hitler allow the people... Did Stalin, right? Did Stalin allow civilians to own weapons? Right? Did Stalin restrict gun ownership, right? It was outlawed. Excuse me. Stalin emerged at the same time that firearm ownership was outlawed. Soviet citizens were allowed to have firearms until 1929, when private gun ownership was abolished. So in Soviet communism, it was a dictatorship, so they take away your weapons. Did Hitler, right? Did Hitler ban weapons? Civilians to own weapons. On gun registration, on NRA, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, right? Hitler and Nazi Germany established his version of gun control in 1938, where millions of Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals, mentally ill, disabled, were banned from... They were going to be killed, right? The Nazi gun control argument is a claim that gun regulations in Nazi Germany helped facilitate the rise of Nazis to Holocaust. He took away the guns, right? First, with regard to possession and carrying of firearms, the Nazi regime relaxed the gun laws that were placed in Germany at the time the Nazis seized power. Yeah, but then, as soon as he came into power, he took it. And one thing that we see also in the Bible, right? We see in the Torah, in the Tanakh, right? There are huntsmen in almost every country who have weapons. Yeah, but they're usually in some far-off mountain where the government can't reach. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is that, or it's that even those people, it's taken away. But the thing is that in the Tanakh and the Torah, right, when it talks about the Jews being slaves in Egypt, right, the first thing that Pharaoh did was to take away. It's written in the Bible, right? The first thing that Pharaoh did was take away any weapon that a Jew had. He took it away, right? So, where in Tanakh did Pharaoh take away, confiscate weapons from the Jews? Legends of the Jews, where in Tanakh, right? So he suspected here, right? Let's see. He took away the weapons of the Jews, right? So Pharaoh's cunning, right? Where is it, right? He said, okay, where is it? Pious midwives. Where? I want to see specifically, right? Where Josephus' Antiquities of the Jews, right? In the wilderness. They took away, I saw it, I need to just find it, right? So, okay, the moral of the story is that he took away the weapons. First thing tyrants do is take away weapons from the civilians, because without weapons you can be controlled. You know? Like sheep to slaughter. It's taking away power from the people. With the intention of like, oh yeah, we're here to keep you safe. You can't have weapons because it's for your safety. We have to keep you safe. We have to prevent mass shootings in the schools. We have to, you know, bad people, they will always find a place to get weapons, you know? Yeah, so that's the story, my friends. That's the story, my friends. That's the story. Rights? Rights? Anyway, yeah. Okay, my friends. Talk to you guys another time. It's been real. It's been fun. And God bless the USA. The U.S. destroyed all samurai swords after World War II in Japan. They were so culturalist. They couldn't tell the difference between a 500-year-old sword and a mass-produced, cheaper sword. That's true. Americans are not very cultured. American culture is basically cheeseburgers, ham, shooting range, horseback riding, movies, TV, and fast food, McDonald's, and what else? What's American culture? Right? Yeah, that's American culture. Even though Americans are very uncultured, right? They're very kind. Most of the people in America are very kind. That's one thing my father said when he came to Russia. He came out of Russia to America. He was so shocked by the way the people were so nice. You know, German Jews, they were very friendly. German Jews were the best and most useful and most intelligent. Yeah, that's the truth, because that's the truth. However, people would hate saying it, right? But the truth is that because Nazi Hitler killed all the Jews and then he got rid of all the scientists, the Jewish people who were scientists, he banished them. And then at the end of the war, right, there were prisoners of war, right, in America, scientists, right, and they wanted to hear if Nazi Germany had come close to making an atomic bomb, right? But the problem was that he got rid of all the Jews. And who was the one who created the atomic bomb? It was the guy. His name was the Jewish guy from Germany. His name was Oppenheimer, right? And it was the group of Jewish scientists that created the bomb, right? So basically Hitler got rid of the real brains, which are the Jews. No offense to anybody who takes offense to that, but he got rid of the that's why he lost the war, because if he had the bomb, if he had, God forbid, gotten his hands on the bomb, we would all be speaking German today. That's what that guy says. That's what this guy says, right? I can't play the, where is it? The guy. He says, what did the Jews ever do for us? He says, what did the Jews ever do for us? Right? Where is that video? More than we ever deserve. That's what he says. Right? Can't find it. Oh, here it is.
What did the Romans...
See, this guy, he says, what did the Jews ever do for us? Right? Let's go turn on the... German is the better language. Listen, Yiddish is part German, right? So, hold on. Right? What did the
Jews ever do for us, scientifically?
What have the Romans ever done for us? What have the Romans ever do for us? What have the Romans ever do for us?
Jews make up 0.2% of the world population. Guess what percentage of Nobel Prize winners have been won? About 20%. and 25% in
You get the
Jews
point,
were
right?
thrown out of countries in all the countries on earth of venture. These scientists were given all the newspaper reports, and the
this is what he's
the
talking
British
about.
captured and interrogated the German scientists who were working on their atom bomb project. They wanted to know how far the Germans had advanced, so they locked them all up in a big old mansion and installed listening devices on all the rooms. When the Hiroshima bomb fell, these scientists...
ich schlepp das kaputte Schlamassel. Kaputte is like is it like a jacket? Ich vibe, ich will, or I want, or my wife, or ich schlepp, I carry das kaputte Schlamassel. Schlamassel is like a guy who's just like a klutz, like he's so clumsy. Right? So, oh, by the way, thanks for your kindly donation the other day. Right? Right, let's see who's gonna argue with my majesty. Let's see who's gonna argue. Who dares to argue with me? Who dares? Right? Let's see who dares to argue. Right? Pretty sure those were broken to the base. Thought it was perfectly fine to do. Did one of those publishers mistake? People like you are potential terrorists. It's psychology. Psychology. These terrorists, child molesters, should be hurt. No human rights for them, and I'd go as far as to put you in jail next to them, so you can't tell us how it went. People. Kaput is like garbage, right? But kapata is like kaput is garbage, and kapata is how it was to be with them and share the same toilet. You know? Whatever. Discard. Right? Anyway. Yeah, kaput is broken, or it's like garbage, right? But it's probably, like you said, broken, you know, the language better than me. But I don't understand, like... Right, so here's the point where I was trying to say.
All the newspaper reports, and the British listened to the conversations. The German nuclear scientists were utterly shocked at this development, the construction of the bomb. It turned out that, in fact, the Germans abjectly failed to come even close to getting a bomb. They had followed completely the wrong path, and there wasn't a Jew amongst them.
Exactly.
These guys, they must have been seriously pissed.
Yeah.
So, while you contemplate this happy event...
Shik says, impure woman. Or, like, in Yiddish, from what I looked up, it means a Gentile woman, but usually it's used in a disparaging way, right? So, but you say it's unpure woman, right? Like the guy who says shekel shiksa, right? He called me an unpure woman. It's so funny. The guy who would love to rape children, that's the guy that comes on my channel and tells me, he calls me that, right?
Interesting. Maybe like and subscribe. Actually, it wasn't luck, was it? And remember that it's not so different today when it comes to Jews being expelled. There is much said today about the supposed dispossession of Palestinians after Israel became a country, but it never seems to be mentioned that Jews were thrown out of countries in the Middle East. 50,000 from Yemen alone, and look what became of Yemen.
Exactly.
Perhaps 1 million Jews have been expelled since the 1940s from Arab countries and Iran. There might be just 10,000 remaining and living in terrible danger. Just think how America in particular gained from the Jews that went there. What a...
Right, so you get the picture, right? So then going back to that, right? So basically, look, if I go look up in the dictionary, because basically I grew up with the word shiksa, right? Which shiksa means like a non-Jewish woman. For us, it means a non-Jewish woman, right? So it's like somebody would say, a mother would say to her daughter, don't wear that. You look like a shiksa, you know. So, right. So shiksa, right, means like a non-Jewish woman. Shiksa meaning, right. Shiksa used especially by Jewish people, a Gentile girl or woman. He's got a big blonde on his arm, a shiksa no less, non-Jewish woman, right? So. Okay, but what's the literal meaning? You say, you're right. You're the one who says the literal meaning is abomination, impure, or object of loathing. The word shiksa is partly derived from the Hebrew word sheketz. Sheketz meaning abomination. It's from the word. The Hebrew word is from that word, but the Yiddish word is something else, right? The German. Shegetz is for male, the male equivalent of a shiksa. And what's a shkutz? You want to know what a shkutz is? Let's see shkutz. 1 second. Right? I feel like you guys are not seeing. I'm showing you. What's a shkutz, right? Shkutz. Shkutz meaning. Shkutz. No. Shkutz. Yiddish word. Yiddish word. Nashkutz. Nashmutz. Shkutz. Nashmutz. Shkutz. Nashmutz. Yeah. How can she be pure if she's not Jewish, right? Not necessarily. Like women, Jewish women, when they're in their period, they become impure. They're considered impure, right? And according to Judaism, right, like a non-Jewish woman can't get impure, right? Only a Jewish woman can be impure. So, for example, like, right, like only a Jewish person can become defiled by a dead body. Like they become impure from a dead body, so they have to go and wash their hands. Non-Jews don't have that idea of impurity for some reason, right? But the whole point is of not marrying out into the non-Jews is because then you become Jewish people are people, right? So, and it goes according to the mother. So if like a man goes and marries a non-Jewish woman, their children are not Jewish. Then if enough people do that, then the Jewish people become extinct. There's no Jews left, right? So that's why it's like a big deal to marry in, right? Very interesting discussions, right? So yeah, like the whole idea of impurity, right? It comes from like when a Jewish woman is in her period, then she can't be with her husband because then she has to go to mikvah after she's clean from her period in order to be together, because the idea of the egg dying, right, and leaving her body, it makes her body impure because it's like a dead body. Like the idea of the egg, which was the idea of the egg, the death of the egg, right? It's like the loss of life. So that is like, it makes a person impure, it makes the woman impure. So that's why she has to go to mikvah, right? Are Jewish women allowed to have sex when they are not married by the Torah? So basically, the answer is no, only because of the laws of Nida, which is the laws of impurity, you know, the laws of needing to go to mikvah, right? And only a married woman can really do mikvah, go to mikvah, which is the ritual bath. So, like, someone like me, if I go and have sex with a guy, it's not really permitted. You know? So, yeah. And, according to Jewish law, a man and a woman can't live together unless they're married. So, unless they're married, like a strange man and a strange woman that are not related, that are not brother and sister, or even, like family member, they can't live together unless they're married. So, yeah. So they are also impure when they are not married and not virgin anymore. So they are also impure when they are not married and not virgin anymore. Yes. Yeah. So someone like me, if I'm in my period, right, then I'm in nida. I'm in a state of impurity, but it doesn't really apply so much because, like, it doesn't really make a difference to anyone or even to myself because there's no there's no idea of sex involved if I'm not married. Like, if a girl is not, like, if she's keeping to the laws, right, and she's not married and she's not touching any man or anything, there's no concept of, it's not a big deal, like, for women to be in nida, like, because she's not going to have kids. If she's not having sex, she's not going to have kids, right? And then there's the whole idea of, like, women when they reach menopause, right? There's that whole idea of women when they reach menopause, right? So the whole idea of sex, is it the same idea? Men and women being together, like, because she doesn't get her period anymore? Like, how does it work, right? So there's many laws to that as well. So I don't know the laws to that because I never learned it, right? But most people, they learn it, they go to college classes, like most girls who, like, before they get married, right? Because they get married very quickly in Judaism, right? They go to matchmaker, they meet a man, and they get married, but before they get married, it's like they have 2 or 3 months to prepare. Sometimes it's 5 months, you know, but they don't drag out the engagement. The engagement is very quick, and so a lot of the time the girl will go to a series of kala classes, they call it. It's bridal classes where they learn all the laws of nida, you know, of having the period and learning how to be a wife and all the laws regarding sex and all that, right? I never went to any of, like, I learned a lot in nida when I was in seminary. Also I read books. You can find books regarding that, but I've never been married, so those laws, like, yes, okay, I've been with guys, but, you know, yeah, I shouldn't have been with anybody, right? Because it's just not, according to Jewish law, it's not, you're not supposed to do that because of the laws of nida, right? But, yeah, whatever. Never been married. So, never been married, and, you know, like, I think it's, in some ways, like, the laws of nida are really good because women, when if they're with the asshole husband, for example, right, who's, like, not a nice guy, and there's a lot of pressure put on women, like, for sex, you know, like, from speaking with many men and, you know, like, being in a relationship with people, men, they are very animalistic, the men. They're very, it's very dehumanizing a lot of the time to be with these men because they don't treat you like a human being, you know? And especially in a marriage, you know, if you're stuck with this lunatic, right, and you can't get out, if you're a religious person, then the whole idea of nida, right, when a woman gets into her period, she has 2 weeks off from her crazy husband. Like, her crazy husband is not allowed to touch her. So, do you know what I'm saying? Her crazy husband is not allowed to touch her at all. So, there's no pressure of her to, like, do anything for him in bed. There's no pressure for her to have sex with him And a lot of the men, like, they don't care. Like, if you're in your period, they don't care how you're feeling. They don't care. They just want you to satisfy their needs, and it doesn't matter whether you are bleeding or not. Like, they don't care. They're like pieces of garbage, you know. So a lot of these laws are actually put in place to protect the women, you know, from these freaks. And it's great, you know. I'm pro it, you know. I'm just like, 2 weeks out of a month, that's great. How about 3 weeks? You know, how about 3 weeks? You know, but must be hard for women to have a bad husband. Yeah, but it's like in any relationship, you know. It's like in any relationship. But at least in a marriage, you know, a woman has her dignity, where at least she has her dignity in some ways, because she's not just used and thrown away, you know. So, you know, I think religion has done a lot for women, but in some religions it has done lots of bad for women. You know, like Islam is damaging for women. Like, there's no rights for women in Islam, right? But for like Christians, for instance, right? For Christians, for instance, yes, there's been a lot of damage done for women, but like the idea of women, like when they have their morals, they don't have sex before marriage, and they don't feel dehumanized before, and they get married, and it's a much more wholesome experience. You know what I'm saying? Because you're in a committed relationship, and the man has obligations to you. It's not just like, oh yeah, that's what couples do, you know. You go out with the guy, after a date or two, they expect you to open your legs, and then they have their way with you, and then they just go fuck off somewhere, you know, and you never see them again. And it's just like, they have no obligation. It's very hurtful, you know. And, you know, it's not nice. It's not nice. I think this whole idea of men just, like, I think there's a place for whores. There should be a place for whores in every society, you know. But the whole idea of the sexual revolution, I think it did a lot of damage for women. Men don't care. They get to eat their cake. They get to eat it. They get to go on to eating more cakes. You know, they don't need to even worry about having their cake and eating it, because they can have their cake for a minute, eat it, and be done with it, and go on to the next cake, you know. But for women, it's like, to find a man who's going to respect you and not expect you to open your legs on a first date, you know, and, you know, like, it's very hard if you're a secular woman and you are put under this pressure, and it's very damaging. Mel B from the Spice Girls suffered under domestic violence. It happened years ago. I recently saw pictures for the first time on Google. It was very shocking. Domestic violence in her marriage or a boyfriend. It's pretty much the same thing for non-Jews, you know. Sometimes marriage, when you're already living with somebody, marriage can make things worse. You know, it's all relative, you know. I don't know if, in some ways, I think, you know, sex before marriage, it can be damaging, but then sometimes I think, you know, maybe some good came out of the whole Woodstock era, you know, like, depending on your personality, you know what I'm saying, like for instance, the women in Israel, they managed to nail men. Somehow the secular women, they managed to get married, settle down, and have a family, you know. And the religious people here in Israel, the women and the men, they for sure get married and have kids. You know, they settle down, right? It's, I guess, there's such and such. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too. Maybe I'm just not. I'm being too. Maybe I'm not being. I'm not thinking in depth right now. I'm not thinking in depth because things can get complicated regardless of marriage and, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Where'd my earring go? Oh, there. So now, like, I'm not dating anybody. I don't want to date anybody because yeah, sometimes it gets lonely, but then I'm free. Like, every time I date any guys, I just get really sad and miserable. You know? When I'm alone, yeah, sometimes I feel lonely, but then I'm like, I'm much happier. No obligations. I don't have any guy being rude to me, any guy dehumanizing me. I don't have any guy being rude to me, making me cry. I'm free. I'm so much happier. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like I'm much happier. You know? So, I guess I'll be like this for a long time. And that's fine. You know? Like, I'm much happier. Like, I live my life. I have you guys. Whoever is nice. I have my hobbies. You know? I have my side hustle. I have my things going for me. I have my family. And whatever will be, you know? It is what it is. Life is what it is. And, you know? It is what it is. Everybody has their own path they have to go down. Like, some people, they just never get married. Never have kids. And it's okay. Some people, they're just meant to be alone, and that's fine. You know? It's fine. Anyway, I'm gonna go now and talk to you guys later. It's been real. Thanks for being here, and have a great day. If we don't meet anywhere, we will be alone. If we don't meet anywhere, we will be alone forever. You mean like meet anyone in real life? No, because like I'm open to meeting people in real life, you know, like I'm open. I'm just not going to go on the apps anymore because it just doesn't work for me, and you know, I feel like men have traumatized me really bad. Men have really, really traumatized me in my life, where I feel like to be alone is just, it's a blessing at this point. You know what I'm saying? To be alone, it's a blessing for me at this point in my life. You know, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's not easy to be alone sometimes, but you know, like, it's a blessing for me because I don't have this extra stress, and I don't have this sadness of just being mistreated all the time, and you know, like my ex, the way he treated me, like, so badly and so rudely and so aggressively, and he dehumanized me, and he was just such a piece of garbage, you know? He's a narcissist, you know? Narcissist. So, most of the men I met were narcissists. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, it's been real. And yeah, have a great day, and I'm gonna go use the bathroom. Have a great day.